What's going on, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Jake and Joe Bengals preview show presented by First Star Logistics. We are excited for another week of Bengals football. We've got the Ring of Honor game this week as the Bengals play host to the New York Jets. The Bengals continue to do a good job of picking home opponents in games they should win for these Ring of Honor games. As I said, we're presented by First Star Logistics, and well, that is a great partner for Joe and I. And if you're looking for work in the Cincinnati area, you can check out all their job postings at firststarlogistics.com. And look, it's one of the fastest growing companies in the Cincinnati area, one of the best companies to work for in the Cincinnati area. So if you're looking for work, you can partner up with the same company that Joe and I have and check all those job postings out. And as we talk about this Ring of Honor game, Joe, we're going to talk about this week, the major storylines going on with the Bengals, as always, a defense that is struggling, turning honestly in the wrong direction in many ways, at least in the last couple of weeks, and an offense that has found its footing a little bit with Joe Flacco, and how much of that is a result of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the way the Steelers approach that game. But Ring of Honor game, always a fun one. We've got a congratulations due to Dave Lapham, of course, also Lamar Parrish getting into the Ring of Honor this weekend. And that's always a fun celebration. We're obviously, we talked for a long time about the Bengals finally establishing a Ring of Honor. Lapham has spent his entire life, essentially, his entire adult life with the Cincinnati Bengals in some capacity, and Lamar Parrish more than deserving as well. So congratulations to those guys. And I know you did your top Bengals of all time list, and we're not going to spend too much time talking about the Ring of Honor guys. We got to talk about the storylines, talk about the matchup with the Jets this week. But I know that you might have some thoughts on some of these guys getting into the Ring of Honor based on that top Bengals players of all time list that you did.
Yeah, I spent that summer getting really, close to knowing what these players were and what they could do. Watched a lot of these old games and felt real confident, even though I wasn't around for a lot of their playing time, right? But Lamar Parrish, start with him. He was fantastic with the ball in his hands, punt returner, kick returner, scoring on blocked field goals versus the Buffalo Bills in an opener game. But I think it was 13 touchdowns in his career. If he didn't split his time between the Bengals and the Redskins, I think he probably would have been a Hall of Famer or been close to it had he been with pick any of the favorited franchise teams around the league, and he would have been the Hall of Famer. So it's about time for him to get in here. Happy for that. I think he was 10th on our greatest list or whatever. But Dave Lapham, you're right, 50 years in the Bengals organization between playing and commentating and being the radio and voice of the Bengals and just being a representative of what the fans were feeling in a lot of ways. His excitement in the booth has narrated many of our favorite Bengals plays over the years. So shout out to Dave Lapham, who's also an awesome person. And I've gotten to meet him plenty of times and work with him through First Star Logistics. So special shout out to Dave there.
Ring of Honor game, always a fun one. And like I said, the Bengals do a good job of picking games they should win, and we will get to that topic a little bit later in the show. We talked last week about the Bengals becoming an any given Sunday team instead of one of the teams that's like unplayable and terrible. Yeah. And one of those, Titans, Browns, Raiders, handful of teams that you're a get right team. And the Bengals have been a get right team for too much of this season. And honestly, I think the defense is kind of still in that boat for the most part. They've got some guys and they've played some good offenses this week against the Jets. They're going to get their second shot at a bad offense this year. The only other truly bad offense the Bengals have faced this year is the Cleveland Browns. And so maybe that 32nd ranked DVOA, 32nd ranked EPA per play for the defense can recover a little bit this week, but a long way to go before we can talk about this defense with any confidence. Let's start with the offense, though, Joe. Then we'll talk about some of those concerns on the defensive side of the ball. The offense seeming to find its footing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers defense really hasn't been very good this year by most objective measures, like the outcome-based measures. They still have dudes, obviously, and we've talked about some of the quality of their players last week, but they're missing a lot of tackles. They're playing with poor gap discipline. John Ledyard, who covers the Steelers and the Buccaneers, does a I think it's a Substack or something like that. He has one of those uh, subscription based writing and video and podcast sites. And he did a couple of videos last week after the game about like how the Steelers failed to adjust in coverage, how the Steelers were just bad essentially in the run game in terms of gap discipline, in terms of tackling, in terms of losing at the point of attack for some of those guys to this Bengals offensive line that hasn't been able to run block all year. Now, you credit the Bengals for some of those adjustments, for some of that level of play to create those mistakes. You credit Chase Brown, who, according to PFF, had 7 missed tackles forced
Whew.
last week, which I mentioned after the game on the post-game show for everyone watching it, that the Steelers missed more tackles than the Bengals in that game. And we're talking about the Bengals tackling being one of their big issues on defense. But the things that seem to work, I wonder how sustainable some of this will be against defenses that are willing to adjust or are willing to do things a little bit differently. Flacco, very comfortable with what he was seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers and the quick game options just consistently available to him in that game. They did change things up a little bit. We saw a lot of package plays. I think that's probably the biggest thing that stood out to me, and Flacco getting them into the right advantageous play out of those package plays where you have a couple of different options. And Zach Taylor talked about that right after the game. How many of their passing yards came on called run plays that have a passing option baked into them? One of their touchdowns to Jamar Chase coming on one of those plays. But that was a big difference to me, Joe. What stood out to you as you watched the film this week as far as what the Bengals changed on offense that worked?
Yeah, I was going to start with the package plays as well. As you know, people will call them RPOs. Slight difference between a package plays. You're not actually reading a defender like you would in RPO, and you're almost counting the box or the advantageous situation, whether it should be a run or a pass. So it's more of a
Which
pre-snap to a snap decision rather than a I'm holding it and reading that linebacker and then flipping it out. So
which
slight difference there.
to be fair is a lot of what looks like an RPO for the
It does.
Bengals anyway. A
Yeah,
lot of the
if you
Bengals
said
RPO.
RPO, that's fine. We're just trying
Yeah.
to take it to another level for you here. That's what we do here, right? And that's
Well, Well, the reason I mention it is because a lot of things that look like an RPO for the Bengals, even with Joe Burrow out of shotgun, where there is that fake handoff and it seems like he's reading out a defender, a lot of those are even determined pre-snap, as far as I understand, or have been in the past for the Bengals.
oh, I agree. I feel like Joe's just trying to freeze that linebacker. If anything, he's not actually reading him. But again, I pointed that about out a bunch on the Bengals on the Brain episode this week, the film review. So if you missed that, if you're wondering what we're talking about, you can go watch that, and it's all broken down there as well. Which I think, yeah, that put them in a lot of great situation, and it's a good sign for Flacco in the Bengals offense and Zach Taylor to say, you know what, this is a veteran quarterback, feeling really comfortable right now, and we're isolating our number one guy in Jamar Chase and sometimes T as well. But we're going to isolate these guys. And hey, if you like that matchup, flip it out to them. And I don't care if it's 23 targets in a game. We'll keep feeding them, especially because the Steelers did not adjust and would not change. They felt confident in their corners. Why? You tell me. I don't know. It's not like they're top. These guys are not top 5 corners anymore. But they went in that game and played with almost a belief that Slay and Jalen Ramsey would be able to hold on a little bit longer to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and they could not. And it was fun to watch that film. So go ahead and go back to that and watch it. But yeah, I thought the quick game was paramount. I thought the run game as well. Once the run game started getting off these explosive runs early, they were able to do so much. I mean, they haven't had second level space like this in a long time, maybe in the entire Zach Taylor era. The Steelers were very aggressive, bringing their linebackers down. Any of the play actions, although statistically did not work really well, the film was really fun to watch on the play action stuff because guys were open for the Bengals all day. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals wanted to go back to that in the future weeks here, and really lean in on the play action stuff. Maybe Joe Flacco's just really good at it, at the ball fake. Maybe he's just really selling it. Maybe they found something that works a little bit more. But yeah, it wasn't so much that I wouldn't say sweeping changes. I think Bengals fans, when they see a game like this, they assume there's been some massive change. This is more in line with what the Bengals do every single year, and they slowly tinker and they figure out what they have and what works, and they build off of that. And I think that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, they make those slow adjustments over the course of time in season every year. They've found ways to get better on offense. Do I expect Chase Brown to average what was he at for this game, like 10 yards a carry or whatever it was. Like,
If he gets 7 missed tackles forced on 10 carries, where you're going to the Super Bowl. Like, they
yeah,
can do that every week.
if you do that every week, you're in pretty good shape in the run game. I don't expect the run game to continue to look great, but in the last 4 weeks, the Bengals are first in the NFL in explosive play rate in the passing game on
Crazy.
offense. And some of that, I assume, has to do with how many plays they've run and just not having as many plays run, but they've certainly found a way to be explosive. Joe Flacco, like we talked about when they made the trade, like we talked about in the last couple of weeks when we've evaluated and seen what he can do on the football field, processing right now in this offense and having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to throw the ball to is working. You just got to figure out quickly what the defense is trying to do and put the ball in the vicinity of Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. And more often than not, as Joe Flacco has pointed out, those guys are going to make you look good. And so that hopefully can continue for the Bengals. This Jets defense has some players, and we'll get into the matchups. But again, like I've said a couple of times here, this is an 0-7 team. You're playing at home. You're trying to right the ship here. If you're going to be one of these any given Sunday teams and continue to show that that's what you are for the next couple of weeks here, where you got Jets, this is your opportunity to get back into it with Jets, Bears, Steelers before you got Ravens, Bills, Ravens. That means that this game is certainly one where you should continue to feel good about the offense. The big question is how much is sustainable in the run game. Like, obviously not that level, but Dalton Reiser had a good run blocking game
Mhm.
for all things considered. Do they continue with the Reisner Rivers combo at left guard, right guard? I wonder. That is a question that we had last week. They went with Rivers. No indication as of the time of us recording this episode that there's a change coming there, but certainly something that we're going to be keeping our eyes on. Maybe by the time you're listening to this or watching this episode, they've made a decision at right guard, and we've heard some clear indication about their direction there. But I continue to wonder if there's a change coming there to get their best five on the field on the offensive line.
Yeah, I wonder as well. It was fun watching on tape, the Orlando Brown, Reisner, Karras connection. I mean, that's veterans. That's a lot of snaps on one side. That can
And
only be
Reisner's
beneficial.
got that energy, you know?
Oh, he's running down the field. He's sprinting to go get these guys, and
Yeah.
you could hear it. And then Ted Karras was mic'd up too. I don't know if you watched that, but Ted was. I mean, he's a nut. You have to get to that level. It lets you understand what you have to, how psyched up you have to be in order to play in the NFL, especially as an average athlete, average size dude that's way over 30 at this point. You've got to get to that point. But I saw a lot of communication between them, correct communication, good communication, and a lot of almost feeding off each other's energy on that left side, like the veterans were taking it over there. I wouldn't be shocked if they kept going with it, even though Dylan Fairchild has been the best of the rookie guards. At that point, people start to question, well, maybe you can kick Fairchild to right guard. I think it may take a high-profile Jalen Rivers loss or individual play for the spotlight to really get on it, because there hasn't really been the heat, even though statistically he's not performing that well on tape. I've enjoyed some things about him, so I think we'll have to see. He's been a decent run blocker at the very least.
Yeah, it's the pass protection
Yeah.
that's the issue for him. And given the way that you want to win on offense, if you're the Bengals, you just have to make a choice there, because it's not like Lucas Patrick was in the limited snaps we saw from him decrepit in the run game. His issues also, to me, were more in pass protection than anything. Not that I expect Lucas Patrick to go out there and be some world beater, but if he can be better in the pass game and not much worse in the run game, if you like Rivers' approach in the run game, and I'm sure the Bengals do, it's still something that I would consider. Just as you're trying to win games, I understand there's this balance between development and trying to get your best five on the field, and we're seeing that on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker as well. And I think they're really searching for answers on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to get there in a second, but another week where, to me, the biggest question on offense is going to be the right guard spot heading into this game and how long they stick with Rivers. Maybe they give Rivers a week against the Jets, but you still got to deal with Quentin Williams on
Yeah.
that defensive front, and that's probably the best player for the Jets defense if Sauce Gardner can't play. Sauce Gardner dealing with concussion protocol, so there's some injuries that we're watching for the Jets this week as well. As of, again, the time of recording, no clear indication these guys considered day-to-day or concussion protocol, where coaches really don't tell you anything about how guys were making their way through concussion protocol. So we'll see if we see any of Sauce Gardner practicing this week. You can tell what stage of concussion protocol a player is in based on their participation in practices. If he doesn't practice, pretty unlikely that he is back for this game. And obviously, that's a big one that we're going to be watching. But we'll get to those injuries as well in a bit when we start to talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of this Jets team. And again, a team that you're probably going to get sick of me saying it, I think the Bengals should beat, but they're going to have to go play a football game on Sunday. On the defensive side of the ball, Joe, the concern level is pretty high at this point, right? Like you hope you get Trey Hendrickson back this week. Cedric Johnson designated to return from IR, and he's provided some splashes, some flashes last year as a rookie, and I wonder how much he would get into the lineup if he were activated. Does he displace Cam Sample as a game day active player? But this defense right now is really two players you're confident in, and a third that you kind of know what you're going to get in BJ Hill, but you're pretty confident right now in DJ Turner, who's on an absolute heater, is showing that development. His last 3 weeks have been incredible. You got Trey Hendrickson, if he's back this week, is a guy that you probably really like that matchup with Olu Fashanu on the left side of that Jets offensive line. But is the entire Bengals pass rush this season more or less for actual disruptive pass rush juice again? And that's kind of it. Like we like the way Dax Hill has played this year, but it's been solid. It hasn't been spectacular. He didn't take that kind of leap in terms of playmaking that we've seen from DJ Turner. So kind of his star is behind DJ Turner's at this point. But overall, like I said, this defense 32nd in DVOA right now. Last also in EPA per play in the NFL. Can't have that. You can't continue to run out the worst defense in the NFL with Joe Flacco. But like I said, this is only the second bad offense they will have faced on their schedule so far this year.
Yeah, I've grown concerned with the defense as the season has gone on. And, we start week 1 versus Browns, the last bad offense they played, as you mentioned a couple times. And you're like, okay, decent. If the Browns can catch the pass, catch a ball, maybe that game goes differently and the defense looks a little bit worse than it was. But for the most part, they were fine, except for the Logan Wilson drive where he was out of the game and they did, march right down the field. The Browns did. And then since then, it's been more questions than answers, I think. It's been guys missing critical plays or key plays, getting dropped into coverage and making us want to bash our head against the wall for the defensive ends, which happens around the league. So let's not, act like but it just seems like bad personnel usage, in my opinion. You didn't really draft these. I mean, these are big defensive ends for the most part. Miles Murphy's huge. Trey Hendrickson is a bigger defensive end at 30 years old. You shouldn't be dropping him. Plus, he's your best pass rusher. Shamar Stewart, Joseph Osai, I just don't see that this is a strength. And then Cam Sample has dropped into coverage as well, talking about Johnson. Maybe Johnson will be better at that. But it just seems like a bad usage. And as they try to figure out, are they a 5-man front against these run teams? Or do they want to get into the 4-3 and drop these guys less against those? The Jets will do a lot of 12 personnel. They'll have 12 2 tight ends out there, and they will 12 tight ends would be crazy. With these receivers, they might be better off. Point being is that you're going to have to get into your 5-man front again if they figure that part of their defense out, which means one of these guys is going to be dropping because they like to send 4 and not let you know which guy that's going to be. And then we also had some 3-man rushes that just didn't make any sense when you have 2 defensive tackles and then a defensive end that can't rush the passer as your options. Like, do you really expect to get a pass rush there? So a lot of questions with the scheme. Part of it is hoping Al Golden adjusts and changes these things and grows as the Zach Taylor teams tend to do. Let's see if Al Golden can do that and massage this thing into something respectable. But at the same time, yes, we need these guys to make plays. We need these linebackers to play better. You're playing the young guys because you believe they can be better than what you had. I get it. But you do wonder if they have the talent on the defensive line to get a pass rush at this point because they've spent so many picks there. It's a lot of young guys. A lot of guys they drafted or maybe inactive, like a McKinley Jackson. Can he get on the field? Is that any help in the pass rush? Probably not, because again, Chris Jenkins, not a pass rusher when you drafted him. You're playing him in that role. So it's a lot of square peg, round hole guys that we want to do this or they want to do this and fill these roles that I just don't believe they're on the roster in order to do it. So I'm growing concerned that Al Golden's scheme is not enough to elevate some of these players. And we're left with the conversation we've had the last couple of years, where it's you're going to need to add different players to this defense to ultimately get them where you need to be. And you can't do that. Well, maybe you can do that, but you can't really do that in week 8.
Yeah, take a look at some of these Jets defensive players in this game and see if you want to trade for any of them.
That's
It's
right.
it's tough to add players in the middle of the season that are going to be big difference makers, especially when you're the Bengals and the kinds of trades that the Bengals, even when they do engage with in-season trades, which now we're 2 years in a row after how many years of them not making an in-season trade between Khalil Herbert and Joe Flacco, 2 straight years. A lot of talk this week about can the Bengals pull off a Cam Taylor Britt trade and try to get a couple players back? Is there a team that you could do a player slash pick swap and references to the Tyson Campbell trade for the Browns and exploring that if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, a change of scenery kind of trade for both Cam Taylor Britt and potentially a corner safety, whatever, from another team, because a lot of Bengals fans want to talk about safety right now as well. And I understand why after watching Geno Stone last week. But to your point, talking about Al Golden finding a feel for things, a lot of people are on Geno Stone for where he's playing on those 2-4 verts plays that give up touchdowns, and that being a theme for him throughout the game. There's a big part of me that doesn't necessarily put all of that on Geno Stone, because if you're
Mhm.
playing that wide over DK Metcalf consistently throughout the game, when you get those 2x2s and kind of saying, okay, we'll let someone else deal with the seam when you're a half field safety. And Bengals haven't played a bunch of half field coverages, pure half field coverages. They'll go half on one side and quarters on the other side. You end up getting a player that's not as comfortable with that, although Geno Stone should be a relatively comfortable player in half field responsibilities. But how much of where he's positioned on the field is what they're being coached to do
Right.
in terms of, hey, really get out wide, stay on top of DK. We're not going to let DK beat us deep. We want to give help on DK, versus how much of that is him making his own decisions about him getting literally on the numbers, wider than the numbers in half field coverage, which would be a crazy idea for a safety to do on his own volition, which again, like I said, going back to Al Golden finding the path here, it's not just with safety, but I wonder about all these guys, about how much of it is what they're being coached to do, what they're being asked to do, versus what they could do that would maximize them on a given play.
And I think the 3rd and 18 play, watching the film, the touchdown, the one over Dax and in front of Geno Stone, the tape kind of rolls and you see Stone get up and like immediately look at Dax and start like talking to him. And so you're wondering if he didn't get the support. So if you're being coached to do that, well, then the underneath guys kind of got to carry that seam a
Especially
little
on
bit
that
longer.
one when
Yeah.
there's no flat in front of Dax. Like Dax needs to get deeper on that play
I think
for
he was
sure.
charged for that touchdown by PFF.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, I think it's
Right.
probably shared to some degree, but Dax
Yeah,
probably
I
gets
just
the
thought that was
play.
interesting there, seeing that on film and like, okay, so they're still trying to feel each other out and communicate on these things. Hopefully you can tie those down, because the Bengals haven't been a heavy split safety team this year either. They've been heavy cover 1, cover 3, middle of the field safety. So it was interesting to me that when they got to the red zone, I wonder if the Steelers were like, oh, we can attack this now. Because the previous play, they were split safety as well. Steelers didn't get to it, and then they come right back to it. The Bengals are in the same coverage again, 2 plays in a row, and Rodgers nails it. But at the same time, you kind of need that pass rush to get there. The big issue with the pass
Yeah.
rush last week was the loops and the stunts and twists again. You've got the crasher and the looper, right? The crasher was the one actually getting pressure. He's hitting these guys, bouncing off, and then he's in front of the quarterback like, oh, I got to make a play here. This happened on both of these plays we're talking about. Chris Jenkins on the first one, 3rd and 18, Miles Murphy on the next one, where neither of them can get the quarterback or affect him enough to force a bad throw here. And Rodgers just, on the one, he loops out, finds Fryer Muth, who goes all the way for the touchdown, and what they celebrated like it would be the game winner. But yeah, they need to figure it out. It's just not gelled. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look like they are good at these things. And it's really making me question it, because we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, the stunts is a big part of this. Like I was excited about it. They're doing a lot of this in training camp, and then we got to the season, and even in the preseason, it's like, man, some of these are just really slow.
Yeah.
Like these are just they need to be so much faster. The ball's going to be out by the time the looper is even rushing upfield. And that has been the case for the Bengals too often. Generally speaking, on this defense, from a player perspective, there is a consistency issue as well. I mean, it's a buzzword for the Bengals. I think it's true for the Bengals. I think we saw it with Geno Stone last week. People are on Geno Stone right now because He just had the worst game of the season that he's had. But again, I wonder how much of that is where he's being coached to be on the field on some of these plays that stand out negatively to observers.
I
Jordan
think
Battle,
overall Stone has been okay. It's not
he's
as
been okay.
bad as it was last year.
And Gino, and on the other side, Jordan Battle is just a roller coaster. Like
Yeah,
some weeks you get good Jordan
high
Battle,
end.
no missed tackles, interceptions, making plays on the ball, and then some weeks you get tentative tackling, missed
Yeah.
tackles, not in the right
Like
spot,
he's got a headache some of these games where he's like, I just don't want it. I don't want to. Everything's
and
buzzing.
you need that consistency, and then the same thing with linebacker. You can't expect consistency from your rookie linebackers that you're trying to develop by giving them live reps. You just it's not a way to win. I don't know. It's really hard to be consistent with
It is.
rookies in that setting. Barrett Carter with the green dot. We'll see if he can take some steps because if you listen to the coaches, they say that he's earned that opportunity. I
He
think.
must be great in the film room, right? He must be great Monday through Saturday because
Well,
in order to make that decision, give him the green dot, he like IQ wise has to be.
100%, and I think he was a little bit better against the Steelers, and he I think took some baby steps, and so we'll see if that can continue here against a bad defense or bad offense in the Terod Taylor, Justin Fields, whoever's playing quarterback for the Jets, maybe without Garrett Wilson as he's dealing with a knee injury that he's still day to day for. This should be a week where hopefully the defense can look better because so much of defense, as we talked about over the years, Joe, is a result of who they're playing on the other side, how good that offense is for many teams in the NFL.
No doubt. You talked about the Bengals not being a get right team. The Jets kind of are a get right team at this point, and especially for your defense that needs to get right in Cincinnati. This is the one of them. If you don't play well in these, because every defense has these, you get like 5 games a year where it's like this offense is terrible. And we've had that Mike White game, right? Where you should go in there and you should steamroll, and you should be the time for your defense to move up in the rankings a little bit just based on the opponent you play. This is the one. You've got to figure it out. I don't care who's at quarterback. They're equally bad in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've looked at some of the. There's been a lot of talk around the NFL about how bad the AFC is this year, and the AFC NFC record, and
Yeah.
teams just like any given Sunday in the AFC right now. And then you look at the top teams in the standings in the AFC. You look at the Colts, you look at the Patriots, and the teams that those guys have beaten. The Colts this year, best point differential in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
6-1 now. The Colts have beaten the Miami Dolphins, the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders, and in the last 2 weeks, the Arizona Cardinals in a game where Kyler Murray was
Was not
hurt,
playing. Yeah.
and then the spiraling Los Angeles Chargers. Against the Dolphins, the Titans, the Raiders, they give up 8, 20, and 6 total points in those games. And as a result, they've only given up 140 points. There are some truly good defenses in the NFL. I think Houston is a legitimately good defense, for example, in the AFC. But
Was an
a lot of these
absolutely
teams,
horrible offense. I mean,
yeah,
not to go too long on these
for
other
sure.
AFC, the landscape, but did you watch that Texans game? Oh my God, they got to
Yeah,
do something.
terrible on offense, which makes you wonder about how bad that Baltimore defense is. But similarly, the New England Patriots have wins. They lost to the Raiders, but they have wins against the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Titans to get to
Yeah.
5-2. And one of those losses is to the Raiders. So they've beaten 4 of the worst teams in the NFL. So the schedule disparities, I think, are showing up a little bit in the AFC. Where yeah, the Bengals lost to the Vikings, and the Vikings probably aren't very good. They really gave that game away. They lost to Denver. Denver's a good, not great team, I think. And then Detroit and Green Bay, I think, are legitimately solid plus solid to good football teams. And now you finally get this soft part of the schedule here with the Jets this week, which is a very long way of saying, again, they should look good this week because this is one of the first teams they've played this year that are one of those really bad, truly unplayable teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's luckily coming off that Thursday night game where the Bengals looked so good on offense, uh, that you're kind of on board again that they can do this, and it is possible, and it is possible for this to be a functional looking team, even though some people have gone a little bit overboard on the offense here. Maybe Joe Flacco should be the quarterback. I've seen maybe sarcastic quarterback comments or whatever's going on in people's
A
minds.
lot of people have asked, like, should they, if Flacco's playing well, should they bring Burrow back? Like, unless Flacco is literally putting up an MVP campaign where he throws no
Right.
picks and has thrown like 40 touchdowns, I'm bringing Joe Burrow back.
Yes, 100%. And I think we'll get to that point because you got the best game you could get out of Joe Flacco
Hmm.
last week.
Yeah.
It won't be like that every week. So we need this defense to look good. We need the defense to step up, rise to the occasion, and take care of this Jets passing attack that looks absolutely anemic. They like to spread it out, but even with the 12 personnel, the quarterback play is bottom tier. Honestly, I watched this Panthers and Jets game from the
I'm
previous week.
sorry.
Yeah, I know. First, it's Bryce Young, and I'm like, Bryce Young's on time. He looks like the good quarterback here, and the bar is not high. And then he goes down, and it's Andy Dalton. He looks terrible. And then it's Justin Fields. He looks absolutely terrible, and I need him for my shadow team. I'm like, come on, Justin Fields. Eventually, I think you're with me. And then Tyrod Taylor gets in, and he's just forcing this ball and not seeing underneath stuff. And I think J.C. Horn ends up with a couple interceptions, great interceptions, but the one is crazy. But it's bad. They're holding that ball. If the pass rush comes alive this week, it's because and the Jets O-line is decent. It's because these quarterbacks just will not release it.
It's decent, but it's not impossible. Like there should be matchups that you like. If the Bengals
Yeah,
had any interior pass rushers
this is the game.
against like John Simpson
Yeah,
and Josh Myers, like these guys are okay, and Joe Tippmann, like they're not the worst guards in the NFL. I mean, they're not
they're
the
small
Bengals
though. I mean,
situation
other than
at right
Simpson,
guard, but if they had interior pass rushers, you would feel a little bit better about it this week. They just don't have that. Maybe this is a BJ Hill game. Maybe we get a vintage BJ Hill game this week. We haven't really seen because even last year, you got the high end game a couple times from BJ Hill, right? And we haven't seen the high end game from BJ
week one
Hill.
was good, but that was it. What
Yeah,
do you have? Six
the
pressures at week
Browns.
one, and then that was
Yeah,
it.
yeah, the Browns. So maybe maybe this is a week that we get it again
You
against
need that.
some
People
worse
used to complain
quarterbacks.
about Carlos Dunlap only beating bad right tackles, but you need to win those games. I need you to beat that bad right
Yeah.
tackles. Okay, here's the game. I need you guys to win this.
And Armand Membo has been great for the
Yes,
Jets as a rookie at right tackle. The matchup outside is Fashanu, who's another first round pick
high pick, yeah.
who is more beatable right now this year. But if they don't get Garrett Wilson back, where is the offense coming from? If you're the Jets, like I'm ready to should we look at the Cedric Johnson play? Like I'm ready to throw Cedric Johnson out there and get excited for some
We do
Cedric
have
Johnson
plays
juice.
queued up.
Yeah, so let's just Cedric Johnson cleared to practice this week. This is his first career sack. He got a game ball in this game against the Denver Broncos for recording his first career sack. This is a hustle play, but Cedric Johnson, outside of this play, where this is a hustle play sack, did show some pass rushing chops and some athleticism and some ability to win, some feel for the pass rush as a rookie. And so if he does get back this week, it'll be interesting to see how they manage it from a roster perspective. But this is his first career sack last year in that important game against the Denver Broncos. The Bengals 7-8 coming into this game.
Yeah, I believe he ends up with 2 sacks. There was one in the final game as well. He's number 52 though, as he's coming around here being the chasing backside guy on the quarterback here to get to this. And both of them were similar to this. And this is a stunt. Hey, look, Miles Murphy went inside and Johnson was on the inside there. So maybe you get some versatility. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot they did put him inside a little bit last year towards the end of the season.
Yeah, hopefully is some kind of shot in the arm, and we'll see if he gets onto the active roster
Sure.
this week. Opening his window up doesn't necessarily mean that we'll see him on the roster by the end of the week or see him on the field this weekend. But nice to get him back either way, just because they could kind of use anything at defensive end. And Joseph Osai had a nice game against the Steelers, has had nice plays at times. It's just not consistently winning as a pass rusher, hasn't really ever taken that step. And so you're still desperate if you're the Bengals for pass rush. And Shamar Stewart is another one. I've had people ask me, Joe, if Shamar Stewart was going to return this week, what Shamar Stewart's timeline was, not realizing that he was actually healthy and played last week. I don't know, maybe it was
Oh,
a joke that like he was invisible
would
to
be a
some
solid
people.
joke.
But if Shamar Stewart can play a little bit more, can play a little bit more under control, can give you something, put those tools to use. Need to see those flashes again from Shamar Stewart and hopefully has a chance this week to show that off. Because like again, like this week, getting Shamar Stewart against those interior guys where he's
Oh, yeah.
inside sometimes on third downs, like that's a matchup you should like if you're the Bengals.
You should be picking on Simpson and a left guard there for the Jets, and, like, whether that's putting someone next to Trey, stunning on that side. I think Trey versus Ola Fashanu, if Trey's playing, is a matchup the Bengals have huge advantage, and Fashanu has looked good to me, and his weakness, though, is the power, and Trey, with his power and his ability to get you to open up your hips and then come back inside on you, that's Fashanu's weakness. And I think you can really win that. But I would be trying to isolate. So go Trey wide there and isolate Simpson at left guard. And maybe that's Shamar Stewart music. Maybe that's when you kick him inside, let him dance around and do something to try and win. But it's probably going to be Joseph Ossai kicked inside and winning at defensive tackle. He had a couple of those last week too. He's the only guy who seems to consistently get a win on the inside for the Bengals D line.
Yeah. And
Never
we'll
at edge though. For Osai, right? Rarely.
Yeah, we'll see what the rotation looks like there, right? Because they have all these bodies and need to figure out which ones are going to actually give you production. Miles Murphy continues to show that elite get off, and there's
He does.
the burst is there sometimes, and then it's just can he put together pass rush moves, have that feel for a pass rushing game plan, and actually win some of these reps that we haven't seen enough from Miles Murphy, but still a young player, still could come alive at any moment. It's just we haven't seen these things, and it's been enough of a sample size with earlier in the show you mentioned like it's hard to have a lot of confidence. I don't remember exactly what your words were, that the pass rush is going to come alive, and it's like, well, yeah, like where is it going to come from?
Right. Like, are we
And
waiting for
Joe,
someone to develop? Are we waiting for Shamar Stewart to develop? I mean, not a great pass
we're,
rusher again.
we're 7 games into the season.
Yeah.
Like we've seen a lot for most of these guys at this point.
Right. Shamar coming back from injury, to be fair. So we got a
That's the
longer
one.
runway for him. We in a lot of ways, I mean, Miles Murphy's gonna be on this team next year too. Shamar's got 4 more years. I mean, we've got a lot of time to evaluate these guys.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, Joe, if we want to go there, the Jets on defense throw at you some solid corners,
Yep.
especially if Sauce Gardner is active. So he's dealing with a concussion, like I said earlier. We'll see if he's back this week or not. Recording this before any real indication that Sauce Gardner is going to play or not this week. But if he does, that's a very fun matchup, strength on strength matchup between Sauce Gardner and the Bengals receivers. But Brandon Stevens, solid player.
But
Jarvis
we've
Brownlee,
taken care of Stevens before. Like him against Jamar Chase has been advantage Chase, of course, but like that's been a matchup.
look, I like Jamar Chase against anybody at this point, but it's the seasons they've had up to this point, solid seasons for Brandon Stevens outside Jarvis
Mhm.
Brownlee, the second-year player
Right,
out of
Brown.
Louisville, right?
Yeah.
In the slot for the Jets, and outside of that, they activated Quincy Williams from IR or opened his window to return. He has had previously a demonic game against the Bengals. Quentin Williams' brother at
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
linebacker.
Mhm.
Quentin Williams, obviously the strength of this defense, but some solid players sprinkled throughout this Jets defense that you have to deal with individually. But again, the talent level lower than the talent level of the Steelers, and the Steelers not playing well as a unit this year, but the talent level is lower. There's no TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith combination on this defense that you have to deal with. And you should again be able to find answers if you're Zach Taylor, Joe Flacco in this Bengals offense.
And I felt like when I watched the Jets, you could run to the outside on them. Jeremy Johnson and Will McDonald. Will McDonald is a decent pass rusher, an agile edge bender that can really get you. And he might get Orlando Brown a couple times. He had 10.5 sacks last year, so he's a good player with a whole bag of tricks too. When he was coming out, he's got a lot of moves, but he's not going to defend the run, and he's not a big dude. And I think the edges are soft for the Jets, and you can get to the outside. Maybe that's a Chase Brown opportunity to bounce something out here and get an explosive run.
Yeah, and the Bengals found those explosive runs last week, so they can continue those against the Jets this week. That's a huge deal for the offense. This offense, the last couple of weeks when they've gotten going, is like when the run game starts to click
Yeah.
just a little bit. Doesn't need to be great, but it does need to be something that opposing defenses care about literally more than zero. Like if they have to care about it a little bit, it's going to open things up for these awesome receivers and give Joe Flacco the ability to get under center in a called run play and figure out, okay, where's the ball going here? Am I flipping it to Jamar real quick? Do I have an advantageous matchup there where I can pick up 6, 7, 8 yards, or maybe Jamar just springs it for a touchdown. Who knows? Especially if Gardner isn't playing, or am I handing the ball off here and having that dual threat? So another game, Joe, where my expectations for this team this week higher than last week. Last week, I would say they exceeded my expectations on offense,
Mhm.
and on defense, it was a little disappointing. But Aaron Rodgers, for as old as he is and as mediocre as he's been, is playing reasonably
Still
good
solid.
football this year
Yeah.
and has seen everything. And so when you're Al Golden sending a zero blitz on
It's
Aaron
nothing.
Rodgers on a 3rd and 8, what are we
Or
doing?
dropping a
Or drop?
8.
Yeah, like Rodgers is still, and he's moving better this year to his credit, but he's still a guy that can punish you for doing kind of silly things and not getting home. And so Rodgers is like that prototypical quarterback where you want to just rush for every play, right? You want to rush for and have a defensive line that can win. You go back to when he was in Green Bay and he's had some pretty bad games against the Bengals throughout his career, but like the Carlos Dunlap, Geno Atkins era of
Yeah,
this
Michael
Bengals defense against
Johnson.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this is a tangent, but like rush for, get pressure with Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, disrupt passes. But in this game,
Can we have those
you,
guys? Can I get
yeah,
Gino?
Geno Atkins not on the Hall of Fame list this year. Crime, by the way. But the point I was trying to make here is you don't have that level of quarterback play from the Jets, no matter who's playing. Tyrod Taylor's been around forever, but he's never been Aaron Rodgers. Has always been prone to making mistakes, to not being
Bad pocket
not having
presence.
that level of understanding about what defenses are trying to do to him.
Yeah, and the timing is different. He's not gonna get the ball out within rhythm. Even his best years, was with the Bills, I wanna say, and then he had opportunities afterwards where he was ultimately replaced by Baker Mayfield, by Justin Herbert, and then he was the backup, for the Giants last year and then the Jets this year. Just always been a solid backup option, but not the type that's gonna keep your offense on time. He's more of the Jake Browning, where he's gonna dance in the pocket a little bit, try and make him a play happen, hold it a little bit longer than he should, and because he's got a decent arm, he will try and just launch it downfield.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of examples
Perfect
of him trying to
timing,
launch it downfield. One of them here, he misses a little
and he's
bit late.
this guy's open, right? Like if you can laser this thing in there, and like it's just an extra hitch in the step there as he's coming up.
This is a crazy play
Crazy
from the
play by
defender,
Horn.
but yeah,
We trade for JC Horn,
yeah, there you go. Throws probably a little bit late,
right? Like right
probably
here,
a
step
little
up.
bit soft. Like you put that on a line, you have a chance, maybe, but probably
I
a
just
little
don't
bit
know if
late.
he's got that arm.
Yeah. I don't think he does. And he did hit one throw in this game that we can look at here.
Here's the
And
dancing in the pocket play and escapability and ability to extend a little bit.
yeah, evading the sack, getting outside of the pocket, and finding a receiver that comes wide open on the sideline. Brees Hall, I think that I know who's 32. I have no idea if that's Brees Hall. I shouldn't say. I don't know the numbers for the Jets.
It's
It
not
is
Brees.
not Brees Hall. Running back missing in pass protection, but a good job from Tyrod Taylor to keep his feet, get outside the pocket on this one.
That's the danger, right? Is he still athletic enough that if you are undisciplined, and that was on a blitz, and the guys, the second level of the defense just crashed and started to chase Taylor, and then he found the open guy. So you got to play discipline. You've got to sack him when you get your hands around him.
Last play to look at here. This is Justin Fields still in the game. This is a different week. This is
It
against
is
the Denver
previous week.
Broncos, but Olu Fashanu at left tackle for the Jets here. And is that Nick Benito,
It
my
is.
boy?
It is Nick Benito.
Just
He's so
running right
good.
around him. He's so good.
And Fasciano, like he's got one loss like this every single week. And there was one I was going to send you from the Panthers game where he lost to the inside. This is the loss to the outside. I meant to send you both, but it doesn't matter. He's had one big loss pretty much like this last few weeks. That's your chance to make a play.
Just a weird pass set generally.
Like he never
Really
got
beat
out.
off the snap. Never, yeah, doesn't
And they're
really
at
get out of
home.
his stance well. Yeah. And this one on the road should be a good crowd. I expect the Bengals to perform better this week, Joe. The
I
Jets are
agree.
0-7. Here's a worrisome stat. Not that I want to finish on this, but the worrisome stat somebody sent me. The Bengals are winless coming off of Thursday Night Football. Could that
Wow.
possibly be true in the Zach Taylor era, or maybe in their last 10 Thursday night games? I didn't go to verify that. but it
Interesting
was
though.
believable enough. I didn't feel like I had to go verify that. Let me just look real quick here.
The Bengals squashing some demons though. They have. I mean, started off 2-0 this year for the first time in Zach Taylor's
Mhm.
era. Not that it ended up being worth anything because we lost the war in the middle of winning those battles early in the season by losing Burrow for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so last couple of years they've lost coming off of their Thursday night game, going back to 2022, and they were quite good. They come off their Thursday night game in week 4 and lose 19-17 to Baltimore in week 5, going back to 2021. Their Thursday game early in the season, the Jacksonville Ring of Honor game. The next week
Mm,
they have Evan
we were there.
McPherson missing all the kicks. Yeah, we were at that Thursday night game. The next week is Green Bay Packers, the weird kicking game that they lose in overtime, 25 to
Oh yeah.
22. Going back to 2020, they had a tie coming off of Thursday Night Football. So they lose to Cleveland in week 2 and then tied the Philadelphia Eagles in 2020. Joe Burrow's first non losing result against the Philadelphia Eagles back in 2020.
None of
And
these
then,
teams sound like the 0-7 Jets.
no, but I mean, how much stock are we putting into the fact that the Jets are 0-7? So that is the Bengals coming off Thursday Night Football in the Zach Taylor era. They've also been pretty bad on Thursday nights in the Zach Taylor era. Nice to see them get a win. Nice to see them get a home game in the AFC North on Thursday night. Of course, notably the team that goes on the road in the AFC North to play Thursday Night Football, which is often the Bengals, not performing well in those games. But this is a game that is not a strenuous opponent compared to some of the others in the NFL,
That's why you got to win
and
this.
is a very important game for them to win, right? Like we're
And
ready
if
to
you
start
want to
talking about.
see Joe
Go
Burrow
ahead.
again this year, you have to win this game, right?
Yeah, we
Like
want to
if
start talking about like Joe Burrow coming back or trading for players to help
yeah,
the defense. You got to win this week. Probably got to win next week. You have the benefit of knowing how these next 2 games are going to go before the trade deadline. You win this week, though. Do you consider making a trade to help you win next week and get a little bit more aggressive? Maybe a topic for next week's show, Joe, is you don't have to wait until the trade deadline. Not that we necessarily expect the Bengals to make any moves, but you don't have to wait until November 4th to make those trades.
they should make some trades, even if it's not for acquiring talent. You mentioned the Cam Taylor Britt thing. He's not starting. Some
Yeah.
other team may want him. Corner for corner trades or just corner trades in general aren't rare. That's this thing where a team says, I could actually get that guy jump started again. I could use that. Teams need corners around the league.
hmm Logan Wilson will be another one that if he's going to continue to have a diminished role, we'll see this week. I think,
Mhm.
like last week, you could see a fair amount of Logan Wilson this week. Last week, a heavy tight end game from the Steelers, probably another heavy tight end game this week from the Jets, especially if Garrett Wilson isn't out there for the Jets. So could see a similar workload for Logan Wilson that he's back on the field. I think he does still have a role on this team. Honestly, I am keeping him on the field and rotating the rookies, but you got a green dot on Barrett Carter. So that means that you have sub packages for Demetrius Knight. That's what my approach would be, but it doesn't seem to be the direction the Bengals are going right now. But we'll see if the Bengals can keep this up. They had a really nice game on offense last week. Need to find some traction on the defensive side of the ball now. Need to see how well Joe Flacco is going to be able to keep this up. But again, a game that it feels very much like a taking care of business game for
Mm.
this team. And we'll have you covered here on the Jake and Joe Bengals postgame show presented by First Star Logistics right after the game. We'll be giving away custom Xbox, and that's pretty sweet. You have a
That
chance
is.
to win a pretty sweet console this weekend on the Jake and Joe postgame show presented by First Star Logistics. Obviously, make sure you check out Joe's film review episode as well on this very channel. And obviously, if you're looking for work in the Cincinnati area, we mentioned this, but you can check all of the job postings out at firststarlogistics.com and potentially join one of the fastest growing and best companies to work for in the Cincinnati area. And the last note here is, of course, if you're interested in those giveaways, make sure you're following at First Star Log on Twitter, on X, for all the details about those giveaways, and make sure you're tuning in for the post game show to find out who's won and for our live post game giveaways. Until next time, thanks for listening to this episode and watching this episode of the Jake and Joe preview show presented by First Star Logistics. And we'll catch you on the post game show.